Here's a guy who thinks he has the best proof that a God exists.
The first thing is the mishigas with proving. You don't have any proof. How do you know? If you say, my mother told me, and that's not good enough, then something's wrong.
Yeah, what's wrong is that it's an argument from authority, and your mother may not even be an authority on the subject.
This is what you have to introduce. That which we've always known to be true is true. What is wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that there are a lot of things which we had for a long time convinced ourselves were true, which later turned out not to be. We can't weed out the stuff that isn't true unless we regularly question traditional beliefs. This guy seems to think that if we've believed something for a long time, then we might as well keep on going. Why?
Why does that need fixing? So in some cases, when psychology became popular, everyone had to have a psychological twist to everything. When communism or politics was popular, everything was political. Whatever you said had political implications.
And when religion was popular, everything had something to do with God, didn't it? As we develop new frames through which to interpret our experiences, we try to apply these frames to as much as possible to see which fit best. This is a good thing.
You can't take one thought or one idea and make it your whole life.
I agree. That's why I think we shouldn't be content with orienting our lives around a religion, especially if the reason is simply mom said to. That's why it's good to have these new frames, like political theory and psychology, through which to interpret things. We should be testing lots of ideas against experience, rather than just taking any one at our ancestors' word.
That's a religion.
So it sounds like this guy's problem is not so much that people take one idea and orient their whole life around it, so much as he objects to people doing that with anything other than a religious idea. The idea around which he organizes his life should get special treatment that other ideas shouldn't get.
And you don't make religion out of everything that's popular.
How about trying maybe not making religion out of anything?
In the 30s and 40s, science became God.
I'm not sure why he picks the 30s and 40s here. Science has been impressing us for a lot longer than that.
In science, and only in science, there is this thing called proof.
Well, in the empirical sciences, proof is simply a strong preponderance of evidence, and expecting evidence for claims is not exclusive to science. Even in something like biblical hermeneutics, you are expected to show that your interpretation is in some way related to what the text actually says. There are lower standards for fields like that, but if you tell someone how the Bible ought to be interpreted, and they ask why one should interpret it that way, I think it's pretty reasonable that they expect a more detailed answer than "my mom said so."
Because if you want to establish a scientific fact, just because it happened once doesn't make it a fact. Because it happens once in a while doesn't make it a fact. If you want it to be a scientific fact, you have to test it over and over again and see that you get the same result. Then you can say this is a fact.
Well, if it doesn't consistently appear, then it often isn't clear what it even is. You don't know if it's a cause or an effect or a coincidence or a placebo. If event X is followed by event Y, then you don't have much reason to believe that event X causes event Y unless you see it happen consistently and under conditions that rule out as many other explanations as one can imagine.
That's how it works in science. That's not how it works in music. To say this is a good song doesn't mean you have to sing it over and over again and see if everybody loves it every time.
Well, saying a song is good is not music. Music is playing songs, not evaluating them. Evaluating songs is music criticism. And even in music criticism, if you say a song is good and someone asks you why, they probably won't be satisfied with "because my mother told me." Sure, they probably won't ask for proof, but people don't typically ask for proof of subjective judgments. If someone asserts that a God exists, but clarifies that this is merely a subjective judgment rather than something that person expects me to believe, then I wouldn't dispute it.
It just doesn't apply. So what happened is that when science became the God, life became a science. Everything had to be proven. Everything had to have evidence. Everything. It's a mishigas.
It's hyperbolic to say that everything had to be proven, but it's a good thing that we seek a preponderance of evidence for beliefs that have the highest stakes. You want proof that pills for a headache work before you put them on the market. Shouldn't you want proof for a worldview that asks as much of you as a religion does?
That's why if a person says, "I don't believe in God," it is the dumbest statement in the world. And yet somehow we feel like a need to argue it and to defend it and to debate it and to... What did you just say? I don't think there's a God. You're such an idiot. First of all, what do you mean I don't think there is?
Well, what I mean is that depending on the definition of God, I often don't know what the statement God exists even means. I don't understand what a God is even supposed to be. And even with the definitions of God that are relatively clear, not only do I not see proof, I don't see much evidence either.
Anything you say, no, that can't be, or that, you're stupid. There's no seichel, there's no intelligence in the world that tells you what can't be.
Every intelligence in the world should be able to tell you that there can't be any married bachelors, or any such self-contradictory things. Insofar as God is defined as having self-contradictory traits like timeless, spaceless existence, it doesn't take any great intelligence to tell you that such a thing can't exist. To exist means to exist in some place for some time, otherwise it exists nowhere and never, which to say that it does not exist. Now, I don't know if this guy defines a God as being spaceless and timeless, as some apologists do, so I don't know if his particular conception of a God exists. I don't know what he means when he says that a God exists.
So if you say there's no such thing, you're being stupid. That's not your seichel talking. Because seichel doesn't say things like that. Even if you're hearing it for the first time and nobody ever heard such a thing before. When a subject or a topic has been discussed for 5,000 years and you say there is no such thing, you're mamish an idiot.
For how many thousands of years has geocentrism been discussed before we found out there's no such thing? I'll bet it's more than 5.
It's just so stupid. And the fact is that when you talk to a person who thinks he's an atheist, if you talk to him long enough, he ends up saying, well, okay, fine, so there is some kind of God, but he didn't give the 10 Commandments.
What? Which atheists are saying that? To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.